Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and I'm here with Trauma Informed Prevention Services of the Inland Empire, TIPS IE. We focus on delivering behavioral, coping, and social emotional skills in developing our youth in the Inland Empire. And with me, we have Joyce Clark, a 20-year freelance grant writer specializing in education and the arts. Joyce is also a researcher in this education space, currently monitoring trends and changes in California, particularly regarding COVID-19.
That's right. Thank you, Glenn.
So Joyce, let's just jump right into it. Our last conversation, you gave us a summary of the steps Governor Newsom and his team outlined for a restricted phase reopening of some businesses. Last week, the governor unveiled his revised budget reflecting the items responding to COVID-19. What does that look like?
In Governor Newsom's revised May budget, there is a $54.3 billion deficit or shortfall. So there is definitely going to be some belt tightening over the next few years for all of us.
Yeah. So what are some of the new items that he has in his budget?
Before I share that, let me say that the governor had the foresight to have some reserves, including the surplus that his predecessor, Governor Brown, left in the general fund. And the safety net fund suggested a few years ago by the African-American Senator Holly Mitchell, who is actually the head of the budget committee. So when COVID hit, there was some dollars to draw down to get the additional resources for masks and other things that were needed very quickly for the frontline workers. So those items in the budget, 5 main areas. Number 1, education. 2, health. 3, safety. 4, employment and job creation. And 5, public assistance for families.
So education, health, and jobs during COVID-19, they seem to have been hit the hardest. Let's start with education. What are some of the details in the budget?
There are 3 things that really stood out for me. Even with a 10% plus cut to schools, education gets the bulk of the proposed budget, $44.9 billion for K through college. And again, this is with the federal government's help if they decide to kick in that much. Community colleges are still tuition free for the next 2 years, and that's good news. The governor also wants to pay school employers retirement contributions. That's key because some teachers were retiring either the end of this year, June, or next year. So those contributions, that money for their retirement has to be there for them. Something new in the budget because of COVID-19, money to address the governor's new phrase, new ism, is learning loss and equity issues, which were exacerbated by COVID-19. The school closures this spring had young people at a true learning loss, and they're going to try and implement or mitigate some of this through summer programs. So the schools are going to gear up very quickly for summer programming.
I see. But fundamentally, we're still talking about people, So what about the students and teachers? What do you think will be the impact on their mental well-being?
Glenn, I can only hazard a guess. But by looking at this budget and understanding how narrative and budget need to go together when you're talking about line items for the schools, what's going to be there is for them to retrofit their classrooms and other spaces so that they can adhere to the restricted guidelines, social distancing, improved hygiene measures, and purchasing equipment to implement all of these measures. Unfortunately, youth are still going to be feeling anxious about walking into this new normal classroom, their campus, and being restricted about what they can and cannot touch, where they can and cannot go, and what they can and cannot do. It's a new normal. For college students, the freshmen, for the state colleges, all their learning for this year until December is going to be online. So a new person just newly out of high school will never be able to have contact with their freshman class until 2021.
Consequently, it seems that their emotional well-being will take a hit.
Yes.
And we're talking about from grades K through college.
Yes.
Any thoughts on mitigating steps?
School counselors have been working with students through this COVID process, but the inherent problems have been privacy in the household. The students are overwhelmed by parents being newly unemployed, and it's worrying these young people. And no graduation ceremony. They were all excited and geared up. Didn't happen, whether it was from high school or from middle school to high school, from high school to college to a job. Didn't happen. The list goes on. However, this is where trauma-informed prevention services of the Inland Empire, or TIPS, IE, can be supportive. This collaboration consists of clinicians and counselors who work with youth and adults that they can counsel, and they can do this with families day or evening, something the school counselors cannot do, or a family would have to pay for.
So trauma-informed prevention services, or the IE, can provide services beyond what a school counselor doing his 9 to 3 work hours. That's what they're capable of doing. So with that expansion, it sounds like a pretty good benefit. How can people listening to us find TIPS IE?
Well, TIPS IE, before I give that contact information, I want to say that TIPS IE can give counseling and other services at a lower rate than you would with a sole proprietor counselor, because we look at the wellness of the whole family. But I also want to share that what was reported in a May 14th article in the Press Enterprise, a spokesperson for the California Association of School Psychologists said she's concerned, and I'll read it, that when districts have to make cuts, they'll turn to mental health staff first, which is what happened in 2010, 2011 during the last recession. They were the first to go. And that is where outside clinicians like TIPS IE can be of enormous service to school districts to be there beyond the 9 to 5. And now that some schools may be online, to keep helping these young people and their parents into the evening hours. So to answer your question, the contact information, starting with the phone number, 951-282-7173. Again, 951-282-7173. The email, tips, TIPS, .inland empire cal, CAL, short for California, at gmail.com. Again, tips, .inland empire cal, at gmail.com.
Well, Joyce, let's shift to health for a moment. Looking at the cuts the governor had to make to health, will some of them impact COVID-19 high-risk populations, especially Black and brown people?
You're right. It will hit the Black and brown communities pretty hard. And we saw that with the testing when it had to be paid for. They thought it had to be paid for. Black and brown people had to make choices, food on the table or be tested. So what's happening is some optional Medi-Cal benefits, such as community-based adult services and full dental care, are going to be eliminated in this budget. Seniors, and disabled people will receive fewer, fewer hours of care through the state's in-home supportive services program. And you know that this program was very much needed because seniors wanted to stay in their home, not go to a nursing facility or someplace else, um, because it would be unfamiliar to them. And the state stepped up. And there are many in-home supportive services. And for them to be cut, just don't know what that's going to look like. And that's where other services are going to have to step up. And maybe that could be tips to make calls to these seniors to help them with their mental well-being. And finally, there's just going to be cuts across the board in health areas that are outlined in the revised budget. And people can go look at that budget on the state's website, www.covid19.ca.gov.
So getting this economy moving is paramount. I mean, we're thinking about it from an employment standpoint, obviously, a GDP perspective. But what, if any, cuts are in the revised budget?
I'm happy to report that some items are going to stay the same. And the May revision really has prioritized funding for direct payments to families, children, seniors, and persons with disabilities. And this is going to be through a combination of items. The first is the Earned Income Tax Credit, which we have been enjoying for the last couple of years on our income tax. Medical benefits, the Affordable Care Act, which has been very successful under former President Obama. It has really, really helped the small businesses and independent workers. And CalWorks, that's the Welfare to Work program that has just been instrumental in getting people off of the welfare rolls and into well-paying jobs. And there are other social programs that will stay intact or be expanded, and that's good news. The second thing is the governor's looking to support job creation. He's putting money into a small business loan guarantee program. And we're seeing that now during COVID-19, where the Small Business Administration is throwing out e-blasts and emails and just trying to get small businesses to go to their banks and be a part of this loan program that will help them stay afloat, or the PPP, help them pay their employees, have some protection of paying their employees during COVID-19. And some of this is forgivable. So to put money into small businesses is very paramount. I'm glad the governor's looked at that. And you know that in small business, they hire faster than large corporations. Mm-hmm. They see good personnel, they've seen your resume, they know the work you do, they may have had a good referral, and they bring you on right away. Large corporations have steps and processes to make this happen, which could be a month or two before they turn around new employees. The third thing is the governor has convened a task force on business and job recovery. He spoke about this some weeks ago in one of his press release addresses on television. It's a diverse group of leaders from the business sector, the labor sector, and nonprofit sector. And they're there to advise the state on how to get the economy growing and also give the state some actionable, implementable items that will jettison us into a business economy recovery as soon as possible.
And the cuts?
Well, like everything else, there are painful cuts. And the governor is leading by example. Every state worker will see cuts, and the governor and his staff are getting a 10% cut across the board, all those salaries, and there are going to be layoffs and growing unemployment, and they're projecting about 24%. And this is as retailers and other businesses file for bankruptcy or open with fewer employees Or like the small mom and pops who had maybe 4 or 5 employees, don't open back up at all. That not only leaves the employees out of work, but the employers. This is good labor. Those mom and pops who had these businesses, these standalone businesses, are experts at everything, whether it's accounting, managing staff, all of those things, and they'll be gone. We hope that we'll be able to shift them into a new workplace. To continue on, every sector, from education to nonprofits to churches, to anybody who relied on government funding, is going to feel some painful cuts. And all of these are service programs that help people, support people to have more than just a livable wage. They are going to see some painful cuts. Finally, in this budget is just paper, is just suppositions, just forecasting. These are, however, are not just numbers, but these are people who are struggling to get back on their feet, to find some peace and harmony and normalcy in their lives, just to keep their train going without any bumps and hills and valleys. And this is where TIPS IE comes in again. While they are navigating this uncertain territory, they're going to need some help in mitigating the worry and the stress that they are experiencing.
So, Joyce, can you remind our audience again how to get a hold of TIPS IE?
All right, so TIPS IE is trauma-informed prevention services, and our phone number is 951-282-7173. The email, tips.inlandempirecal, C-A-L, @gmail.com. And I hope people will either call the number or email, because we are here to help. We are absolutely, all our clinicians are specialized. They have their own independent practices. And we have come together as a collaborative to support people going through these uncertain, frustrating, painful times in their lives. We hope you will call us. Thank you.
Once again, Joyce, thank you for the insight, for the understanding of how our officials are making these really difficult decisions that are going to impact all our lives. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're aware and our audience is aware, so we can make the best life decisions for us as individuals as well as a community.
And Glenn, as the governor keeps saying, and the mayor, we are in this together. Thank you.
With that, again, Joyce Clark, I'm Glenn W. Hunter. We look forward to speaking with you again very soon. Please continue to share our message with your colleagues, family, friends.
Thank you.